And welcome back to everyone to the Fates Voyage Onward World Open Qualifier. I am Jems. Joining me again for the next round of top 32 is obviously Fresh Lobster. And what a top 64 we just had. It was a fantastic scorcher of a matches in general. And super glad to have our top 32 now ready and waiting for you guys to see.
Yeah, some favorites already dropped out in the first round, but a lot of favorites are still inside this top 32, and the matches we're going to see are going to be amazing. Looking at the first half of, or rather the first quarter of this top 32, we do have another German versus German matchup, unfortunately, but still some very known names here. Smooth Swallow is still in this, Ragnar Rosic representing Russia. We have PVH, one of your fellow Great Britain representatives, also showing some success and knocking out Gouda in the first round.
Yeah, it's fantastic showing there. And on the next section here, we have our sort of featured match of the day, Ultraman versus Hipster Waldo in the top 32. At least I got the CS. Again, another fantastic ladder player and tournament player, consistently making it here to top 32, so the finals, doing fantastic. And Talpinator and Generog, again, some sort of old-timey players that have been around for ages as well, doing fantastically.
And we see, oh man, the Germans are really doing well in this tournament. Tilted, another name that has been there from pretty much day one, already qualified to this World Championship, but still playing for money and glory. We do see Sonic, who beat Pinas earlier on in very convincing fashion. Banger matches all around. What can I say? It's really hard to pick what to follow here. Do see the last segment of this bracket. Shihu is going to make it, go up against Boxer. We do Jin and Thunder Uncle, names that have been around for ages as well. Thunder Uncle was able to represent Croatia back in the Lore Masters Europe tournament, and a super high profile matchup in Sorry versus Mike Check.
Yeah, again, all these players, if you've been watching the tournament's history, they are players that have shown consistency and just tournament performances in general. Most of them are finalists. Most of them have made it all the way to top 64 on numerous occasions, have got loads of world points accumulated. And we're going to hop into our sort of our top 32 deck list here between
both previous Premier Tournament winners. I think Waldo won one of the first seasonals in EMEA. Ultraman won a recent seasonal or open as well. We do see the first deck that is Jax Ornn coming out from Hipster Waldo. This has been very common previous season, did not quite see as much play this season because Darius Nar was the more favorable overwhelm option, but still a force to be reckoned with. Do you see any interesting, or did any tech choices stand out to you?
Yeah, there was a single copy of Buried in Ice, which I think is the Bane one. Which was fantastic, brought there, which will help again with other like sort of Demacia lists. And obviously here, Nilajana, again, very straightforward list that we've been seeing across the board. Again, with the double Aftershock that we mentioned earlier on in the day to help in sort of the mirror matchup. And also it's just a 3 damage removal should you need it to.
Most of these Jananila lists are going to be looking pretty similar. The list is pretty refined by now. Second copy of Eye of the Storm allows some more draw consistency, and the third deck is going to be another Scouts deck. Did see that before. This is a very straightforward list, not opting for the Chain Vest. Does play 2 copies of the Blocking Badger Bear. A bit of an uncommon choice is the Grumble Slug here.
Yeah, so Scouts has, I guess one of its biggest issues is finding turns to get spell mana in the early stages, so you can set up stuff like Inspiring Light. Grumble Slug and Shell Shocker sort of alleviate that a little bit, allowing you to develop while building up that spell mana for the Inspiring Light, so you can keep sort of the pressure building on. I really like the inclusion. And yeah, here is Seraphine Heimerting, a set Sunken Temple here from Ultraman, and we want to talk about tech choices, but everything's a tech choice in this list if you haven't seen these types of lists before.
Love how this graphic just barely fits on the screen because it plays so many different spells. One very important one that is common these days is Rocket Barrage, being able to take care of Giant and many of the supporting units like Windborne Marina on the Jananila side. This is Yumi, that deck that we saw earlier on by some other player, but we didn't quite get to see it in action. This is the Bandle City Freljord list. that seems to be making a bit of a splash here in the top cut.
Yeah, I believe JO1 was running something similar. I'm not sure if they were running the Freljord version, but they were running a Fizz Yumi list over in APAC. And obviously the third deck here, as we could see from Ultraman, not going for the Aftershocks, but instead going for the Tidal Invocation, which again is kind of like one of the main, I guess, tech choices. That's kind of, the list is very set in stone. There's only a few slots that you can really change.
I do think that gives us a valuable piece of information. Ultraman not opting for landmark removal means that he wants to ban Jananila most likely, or set Seraphim. He probably wants to ban the landmark decks instead of playing against them. And he does have the perfect opportunity here to get rid of Jananila on Hipster Waldo's side. But that does mean there are some rather tough matchups left if Ultraman does decide to ban the Jananila.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if Jananila's banned from Ultraman's side. However, Waldo's side probably gonna ban. I mean, even Fizz Yumi could be a bit of a problem for Waldo to deal with. There isn't that much interaction on Scouts, and Jax Orn again has a couple of removal options, obviously with the fish fight and the challenging the lure, but could pose a huge
also
problem.
Jax Orn usually plays some Three Sisters or some freezes, and you mentioned the Buried in Ice earlier on. That can obliterate Bone Clubs, that can remove Yumi very effectively. Might come in handy, but yeah, Hipster Waldo probably has not the easiest choice what to ban on Ultraman side, and I'm not too certain if Ultraman is actually gonna go for the Jananila ban on his side. I do think so.
Could be Scouts as well.
It could be Scouts.
Because Scouts should do pretty well into both Fizz Yumi and Set, because can just go wide, can just then develop a big enough board for champion strength probably quicker than Fizz Yumi, I would say.
Yeah. It's a good point. I do think, though, that Ultraman tagged in the Tidal Invocations exactly to play against matchups like Scouts. We mentioned it earlier on, the key to beating Scouts is not letting their board go wide and not running out of blockers. And Tidal Invocation does two of those things in one card, right? Remove something like a Fleet Feather Tracker while spawning a 1/1 blocker on your side.
If that sounds familiar to you guys, it's because we've had to deal with that card for years. It was also known as Valfeast.
Yep. Classic 2-for-1. Different region, same kind of vibe though.
Yeah, exactly.
Both players
blocker plus removal.
Yeah. Both players taking a lot of time on the bans here, and I am not surprised. We do see Jax Orn be banned instead. One other thing which we could have highlighted and mentioned is that Ultraman's Jananila did not play heavy metal. It was not able to take care of weapons that effectively. We did see, I think, the Fizz Yumi get banned on Ultraman's side, which means there are now a couple of matchup options. We do see Scouts against Ultraman's Jananila, and I think that Ultraman prefers this matchup over the Mirror because of the lack of Aftershocks.
Yeah, and the card we were just talking about, Tidal Invocation, right there in Ultraman's starting hand, is going to play a huge role here in stabilizing the first couple of turns.
Nila as well. One thing that is interesting about Hipster Waldo's Grumble Slug as well is it is a great Nila blocker on turn 2. But the tech choice does not pay off here because Hipster Waldo did not find it. The Nila is going to smack Hipster Waldo's Nexus uncontested.
Yeah, it would have been fantastic, especially paired up with the form-up. Would have had exactly the perfect mana to actually remove Nila. So unfortunate for Waldo there to not really have anything for the first 2 or 3 turns. Really what Waldo wants to find is pretty much just any units you can play, sort of develop a board. You don't necessarily have to block anything from Ultraman's side, but you do want to be able to, well, the John and Nila stuff is happening right now. We hit the draw, we hit double Marina, we have we've got the spell here,
even the
removal
slipstream
options.
Wait, what is it called? It's not slipstream. The Nila champ spell, the whipping something is incredible here because it takes care of the Vanguard Sergeant. It forces Hipster Waldo to invest the card, to invest resources, and it makes sure that the Sergeant cannot block Nila anymore. Of course, we know Waldo has the second form up, but it's just incredible pressure being generated here by Ultraman with this Tidal Invocation tag.
Yeah, it's a fantastic turn. The problem is obviously for Waldo is this turn is very difficult. You can form up, But that stops you from developing Island Navigator, which kind of forces you into playing your second Sergeant and then Island Navigator on the following turn. Which means, again, also the next issue is Inspiring Light. You won't have enough mana for it, even though your board is gone wide. It's very, very difficult decisions here from
Waldo has some answers, but it's just not enough. Like, it costs too much mana, it's not developing enough units, while Ultraman's deck just does the very unfair Neela Janna stuff with the perfect opening, right? Neela into Slipstream, double Mariner, following up with Janna to make sure you're not running out of resources later on. Double Howling Gale in hand to remove any blockers that Hipster Waldo might play. Could take care of a Quinn even, but here, like, Waldo's hand is just not offering enough. Waldo is probably going to try to go wide with the Vanguard Sergeant into the Marai Warden, but is it going to be enough to stop the onslaught of pressure by Ultraman?
Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate on Waldo's side that Ultraman managed to get sort of the tidal invocation right at the beginning. The double Marina turn was huge. The draw from the Slipstreams from Neela as well, hitting at the perfect turn practically right away, makes this Inspiring Light very, very weak on the side of Waldo. Yes, is able to buff 2 units, but it's a little bit slow. It's a little bit too late in the game, and there's another invocation that's going to make that tentacle a 2/2. There is, however, 2 champion strength, which is going to be pretty big here for Waldo. Waldo probably forced to try and get some value. Yeah, the value blocks here is going to get punished for it, but
yeah,
they kind of have to, because otherwise I think their life total ends up going a little bit too low, and now you're in range of quite a few burn spells from the side of Ultraman.
I agree. Waldo has to go into desperation mode. Like, if you're Waldo, your thought process is, if my opponent has a good hand, I cannot win anymore. So I act as if they don't have a good hand and just try to make use of the only chances that present themselves to me. Just hope my opponent breaks. But here we see Ultraman does have the perfect refill in Helmsman or Slipstream with 7 mana available if Ultraman wants to refill the hand.
Yeah, that Helmsman is just going to provide so much removal, making it very difficult for scouts to really do anything. You might want to go for the Slipstream first, just to see if you need to develop it, but you can just slam that Helmsman down here too and be completely happy. You get a Howling Gale, you get a Formless Blade. You're quite chilling here.
Yeah. Could even go for the second Slipstream. I think you don't really have mana to play the other cards. Oh, never mind, Howling Gale. Tidal Invocation is also an option. We will see how this unfolds, what everyone goes for. Mystic Shot is still available for Ultraman. Like, Ultraman can still play the whole hand, all 4 cards technically. This is so crazy with this Janna Neela deck.
Yeah, this is extremely tough. This is the big issue I guess Scouts has in this matchup in general, is if you don't get that first couple of turns to try and set up before a lot of these discounted spells become available, you end up falling really far behind very quickly.
Yep, Scouts is the ultimate snowball deck, and we saw Waldo not being able to play anything on turns 1 and 2, and that was ultimately what really bit Hipster Waldo and allowed Ultraman to snowball instead. And we see the Shiny mode come out, and a quick and convincing 1-0 lead here for Ultraman.
Yeah, very, very convincing indeed. And Ultraman playing very straightforward Janna deck. Janna Neela gameplay, managed to hit the premium cards of Slipstream at the right turns, which is exactly what you want to be seeing here. And obviously, Ultraman, a veteran here, is going to be feeling very happy and confident getting that win right here in the top 32.
Next up, we have Set Seraphim with the Heimerdinger click going up against Scouts again. This is a matchup I think that's somewhat favored for Scouts. I'm going to try to look up ladder stats here in a second.
It should be favored for Scouts, yes. There's a lot of one-offs, obviously, in the side of Ultraman, so has to draw the removal one-offs in the early stages of the game. Potentially, the Notifiers go well is going to be huge for denying stuff like Inspiring Light. Basically, the deck needs a lot of things to go right for it.
Great opening hand, great techs on Ultraman's side so far for this matchup, because the Acorn discounting something like a Concussive Palm is enormous. It's such a good anti-Demacia card. The Deny for champion strength already in hand. The Pit Fighter, Pit Professional, I don't quite remember the name, but the 3/3 body is going to drop soon. It's going to be enormous. So amazing start here for Ultraman. Everything you could hope for in the opening hand. Outside of maybe a set for some mid-game board control. I also double-check ladder stats. Scouts are favored with a solid 60% in this matchup. But in this case, with Ultraman's techs and with Ultraman's piloting skills, I would say it's a bit closer.
Yeah, it will be closer. However, this is a pretty strong hand from Hipster Waldo. It does draw the Badger Bear, which is the card I coin as the most annoying for the Karma deck to deal with. At that 4 HP, makes it a very annoying card to deal with overall. Usually, most of the units that they're playing on Ultraman's side will trade unfavorably, forcing usually a 2-for-1 in this match, which can be huge.
Badger Bear does come out in time to stop Acorn from any further shenanigans. We do see the Pursuit of Perfection be picked up, but it's a bit late. What is taking your breath away here, Gems?
So there's two big options here for Waldo. So you've got sort of trying to set up a really wide board for a potential like Inspiring Light or on future turns, or maybe even an early champion strength potentially if you float enough the correct mana. The other option is you just go for Scout and then pass, I believe. I don't think you really want to attack in just yet.
Not an easy choice yet.
Yeah.
Waldo is also aware of the Wuju style tech in Ultraman's deck, knows that the Badger Bear could be threatened if he does decide to swing in. For Waldo, it's a bit awkward. He would prefer to have the attack token on the next turn to be able to play like Vanguard Sergeant, Shell Shocker, and then for Demacia just go incredibly wide and strong. But yeah, Waldo is just going to build up the board here. Ultraman kept on passing. Not really any straightforward plays in hand. Do you want to really invest the Concussive Palm just to play basically a 3-mana 3-2? It does, however, make use of your mana. It's a tough choice to make.
Yeah, it's tough. It really depends on... There's also obviously the opportunity for Waldo, if there is a pass, to just kind of pass back. And just say, okay, I'm going to keep this big board. I'm going to play Sergeant, maybe set up like a 4 Demacia.
Okay. Ultraman elects to go for the Explorer spell here to prevent Patricide Broadwing from value trading. We do expect the other Broadwing to pull Acorn, and then we're going to see, well, a bit of a shootout of combo tricks. No, the form-up is going to pull the Pit Professional, and Acorn is left on his own. Is he going to go for a block? Is Ultraman going to invest the Wuju style? The answer seems to be yes.
Yeah, really valuing keeping any type of board presence alive for Ultraman, considering their hand is going to be very valuable. They only have the Concussive Palm at the moment. And we know, most likely, obviously the Deny that's in Ultraman's hand has only one target, by the way. It's literally only got one target, that is Champion
It's a huge target.
Yes, it's huge. It's game winning having that Deny at this point. But what a top deck draw here from Waldo. Hitting the Quinn. Elects not to go for the Quinn this turn, saving 2 mana to always have this form-up available.
It is smart because there's a bit of a takeaway here. Ultraman did not play Set on turn 5, although it would have clearly been the best play. So Waldo is not afraid of Set coming on turn 6 neither. There's no reason to open attack. That gives us the time to develop this Quinn, build a super wide board, still have form-up mana available, and now this is looking scary.
Yeah, the other option actually wasn't just form up they were playing around. They were playing around the opportunity to draw a Champion Strength by playing the Island Navigator. So that Island Navigator would have allowed them to play Champion Strength this turn if they'd drawn it.
This is something we're seeing very consistently in these top cuts by these world-class players. It's this super concise mana management, planning multiple turns ahead and just having enough mana bank for the big win condition cards to blow out the opponent.
Yeah, unfortunately, Hipster Waldo didn't draw it. Does have this form up as an option here, but as we can see on Ultraman's side, there is also a form up.
Form up does come out to make the Pit Professional survive the Valor attack. The Bark Beast was an incredibly good pull though by the Island Navigator. Nonetheless, Ultraman's 3/4 Smooth Mixologist is going to be able to take care of it with a very effective block. That being said, form up does come out. value trade in Hipster Waldo's favor, and this is gonna make it so hard for for Ultraman to come back into this game. Concussive Pump does get invested. The discount from Acorn is enormously impactful here.
Yeah, really, really trying to keep as many units alive as possible here on the side of Ultraman. Really trying to stem the damage, sort of delay the game as much as possible. But one thing's for certain, Ultraman should have a fairly solid read that there is potentially no champion strength in Waldo's hand at the moment.
That's a good point. Not only by the card not being played, but also Ultraman did check Waldo's hand earlier on with the Encore generated spell, and it did not show a champion strength, and Ultraman should feel pretty safe here. Time Trick is interesting. We saw earlier on in the graphic that Seraphine is almost leveled. Seraphine should now be at 8 out of 9 if I'm not mistaken, after the Time Trick does end its play, well, effect basically. What's the play here, Gems? What do you think? Is it time to pop in a Seraphine, or are we forced to pick remove it?
So the big problem, if you're Ultraman here, is that you can't actually tap down below 4. For the fear of champion strength, champion strength.
You just said the Ultraman should have a read of no champion strength in hand, right?
Should have, yes, but obviously there is for a top deck champion strength. It is sort of a play. Ultraman is playing into the risk, obviously, of that. We know this is a heads-up play. Ultraman is correct. There is no champion strength, and taking that risk-reward ratio we were talking about earlier on, when we know about the deck lists and what's available, and the information Ultraman has been able to garner throughout this match, it is a correct decision.
I do agree with Ultraman's play as well. It's just Waldo's opening was too strong. This is what we were mentioning earlier on when we were saying scouts just want to snowball. That's exactly what Waldo did so far. Might not even need a champion strength or inspiring light, which means that Ultraman has 2 dead cards in hand. The Notify and Deny have just been using up hand space. They've done nothing so far. And it also means Ultraman did not have that many opportunities to draw into the important cards for this matchup. Something like a Caustic Gryph, a Divine Draft would be insane here. A High Note to remove the Quinn and maybe even the Badger Bear at the same time. Seraphine Swing does come in. I'm expecting Brothers Bond to come out, flip Seraphine,
and levels, gets a removal.
Seraphine,
but not the end of the world, because Sergeant's just going to come down to replace the Badger Bear.
And the Seraphine, the Seraphine is a bit of a sacrificial lamb here. Ultraman cannot afford to read with her, cannot afford to keep her alive for later value, but rather needs to make sure that the board doesn't spiral out of control. Tries to take out some of the attacking presence that Hipster Waldo has, but with the 4 Demacia, I think, well, the Deny is going to come in handy at least. Second Seraphine.
Yeah, that's huge as well. So you can Deny here, and then High Note that has yet to have been played, I believe, this match, will double up and allow Ultraman to remove 2 units quite comfortably. It's just a question of, Island Navigator most likely, and Quinn.
It also can make sense to do it mid-combat to not give Waldo the opportunity to develop more scout units. We'll see what exactly Ultraman does here. It's also not bad to do it right now, because you see whether or not your opponent invests the 3rd form up.
So the downside, obviously, is if there's a Misfortune being drawn, it would allow Waldo to develop here a lot more safely and get the scout with damage that way as well, and clear out both blockers.
Another important graphic being shown here, the Pursuit of Perfection is close to completing, 16 out of 20. And as soon as that happens, it's probably going to win the game in the very next attack. The issue is Ultraman going to have enough mana to be able to get to those 20 cards and then play Pursuit? Because it looks like Ultraman might not survive another attack turn by Hipster Waldo.
Yeah, this is very close.
2 off, I think. But the issue is there's going to be another attack coming in with another 4 Demacia, and there's no Deny left anymore.
Oh, an Inspiring Light might come down. Obviously, we know that there's a Notify. But yeah, I like this, just playing the High Notes proactively before something like a Genevieve could come down and buff up the board. Allows them to remove 2 units. But unfortunately, this is looking very, very tough for Ultraman. the Noblify doesn't really do that. It stops the Inspiring Light, but does not stop the open attack.
What can Ultraman even draw here? It would have to be specifically Rummage into, I don't even know, something like the Ionian Tailstones plus stopping an attacker. It's getting into desperation territory. And Ultraman just goes for the forfeit, knowing that this attack cannot be stopped. The series gets tied at 1 apiece. And this matchup, just as promised, is shaping out to be a banger. We see Set Seraphine against Janna Nila as the third match.
Yeah, and in general, I Set Seraphine. It's a very skill dependent matchup, these two, but obviously because the players are so high level, I could see this going very back and forth a lot of the time. We know there's some landmark removal on the side of Ultraman. I cannot remember if Waldo was running Aftershocks, I believe.
Yeah, Waldo was running 2 Aftershocks, and that is huge in this matchup. This is very much like there's 2 ways this matchup can really go. Either one player really out-tempos the other one. That is usually going to be the Janna Nila deck. If they find an explosive Windborn Mariner opening on turn 2 or 3 or 4, it can sometimes just overrun Ultraman's deck. On the flip side, whoever sticks a Sunken Temple without the other player having a Sunken Temple is probably going to win the long game.
Yeah, it really depends though, because obviously when you get to like the turn 10 onwards, when Seraphine's like leveled up, or when we get to the point in the game where Seraphine, like turn 7, 8, 9, Seraphine's close to leveling up, and you've drawn like a Caustic Rift, and you've hit Flow, and now Caustic Rift removes the entirety of the board. It can get very dangerous even without the Sunken Temples. It's a very, very close matchup, depending on skill. I think at some points in the game, I think we're gonna have to be very picky about the decisions on both players' sides, because even one slight mistake could start swinging it into the other person's favor.
Yeah, true. It's a very close and a very swingy matchup. Here we see the Mariam making use of the fleeting Janna deck drawn by Pool Shark, a very common opening. For those of you who might be newer to the Janna Nila deck, if you have a Mariam and Pool Shark in hand, you can easily draw 2 cards in 1 turn without risking to not be able to play the fleeting card, because the Mariam can just reshuffle the fleeting card. And that allows for stuff like this Windborn Mariner to be discounted to 0, and the Divine Whirlwind that we just saw being discounted to 3, for a good solid opening from Hipster Waldo's side.
I love just the use of the Whirlwind straight up. There aren't that many units in the deck until that one of Heimerdinger comes out. And also later on allows for your Wizened unit to generate it, and you don't have to worry about it, and it fits it in quite nicely. So again, by the way, this is the turn 4 sort of this can happen in the Janna decks where it's like, should I play Janna, should I play not? Right, it's the yes or no. Can I play? Obviously, in this scenario, you can, because Ultraman is tapped down to 3. I don't think there's an answer here without. Oh yeah, you have to go for this room. Oh yep, there we go.
Wait, but Waldo just threw away an Aftershock. I am wildly surprised by this, because the Sunken Temple turn is coming up. Maybe Waldo was thinking, okay, I'm just gonna out-tempo my opponent if they play Sunken Temple. Is fortunate enough to find the discounted Aftershock again here, so not gonna get punished in any way. But I am a bit surprised that Waldo elected to keep Mystic Shot and Howling Gale, but decided to get rid of the Aftershock.
Maybe keeping up Howling Gale for Set.
You're not playing enough cards, though. I guess with Mystic Shot and Howling Gale you can remove Set, but you could do the same with Aftershock. Yeah. Just seems more flexible to me. But okay, going back to the game, I'm sure Waldo did have a good reason to keep those 2 cards specifically. Another Pool Shark comes down. Right now, Waldo does not have the greatest of plays unless Ultraman does invest the mana to play Sunken Temple. Ultraman is staying calm though, not investing in the temple yet, because of the threat of Waldo being able to develop a lot more units with the 5 mana left.
Yeah, it's the threat of it. As we can see both players' hands, that threat isn't really there at the moment, but you have to remember these players are playing at such a high level that they're consistently thinking about, okay, what's the worst case scenario that can happen to me if I play Sunken Temple here, right? Waldo could play X, Y, Z, can play 3 or 4 cards, can remove it and develop quite comfortably. And it's a very risk-averse strategy. Which is fine when you're playing a deck like Seraphine, because you're fine taking the slow game.
Exactly. We're going to get rewarded eventually by having bigger mana pools in a turn later on. And Seraphine is kind of like a mini Karma in a lot of ways. Once you do get her to level up, no matter how long it did take you, she can easily swing the tides into your favor and make you run away with the game in your hands.
Heavy Metal, okay, good option from Seraphine. It is just a straight up removal. There's a number of cards that can be hit, like the Marinas that we can see on the board. There's basically loads of units in the deck. So I like this option from Seraphine. At 4 HP as well, Seraphine is a unit that requires either 2 cards or a Howling Gale.
If Waldo does invest 2 cards here, he's gonna tap under Aftershock mana. This is a very good position for Ultraman. I really like the Seraphine investment here because it does force a bait out removal. At the same time, you are still threatening the Sunken Temple. And even if you just get 1 or 2 draw cycles off, it's already gonna have done a lot in the long run because all of your cards get discounted, you'll draw them eventually, and you're forcing your opponent to invest a removal spell and mana into getting rid of Sunken Temple. So even if it just pops once or twice, it's already gonna have been worth it.
The coin, I believe. Do you know how many coins we currently have?
Not quite sure. Okay.
You can do obviously it's not really sneaky, but like the coin into the temple potentially was an option.
Yeah, good point. I think it's just 1 or 2 coins so far. There's not a lot of coin generating spells. We did not see Place Your Bets be played yet. I think it was just the 1 coin from the Smooth Mixologist. Ultraman did elect to not develop the Pit Professional and to just burn 3 mana on his side, but also not investing into the Sunken Temple landmark, not giving Waldo any opportunity to remove anything.
Also, we now have the Notified draw from Ultraman, which means that Ultraman's going to be feeling a lot more comfortable to probably throw the Sunken Temple down, having that as a backup for Aftershock.
True. Helmsman does get deployed. Also, thank you to the production team here. We do see how many coins are in hand. The second coin just got added. It's not big enough of a stack yet. Sunken Temple does get deployed. Perfect opportunity. Hipster Waldo does not have enough mana to play the Aftershock. Just needs to take care now to not take too much Nexus damage because this Wizened Helmsman is scary.
Yes, so 5 damage most likely was going to come down this turn on the side of Waldo. I do like the usage of the ordering of the spells, blazing on the Notify from Waldo's side, but Ultraman does get to keep a singular Explorer blocker, saving the life total, and now we see the power of the Sunken Temple kick in. One thing to note, Ultraman, because of the RNG, does lose their landmark removal unless they redraw it.
That is true. I think Ultraman still has another Aftershock in deck, though. Probably also Piltover Hellstones. There's plenty of options of landmark removal. Waldo also just does not have it. Does not have Janna. Does not have an Exalted Cloudwinder. And very important, Waldo did not play Eye of the Storm yet. So the Helmsman can also not pick that draw-heavy option, which is often super worth it in these situations. Pool Shark is a delayed draw, and Waldo is going to have to hope to get the draw cycle going. What do you think? Do we deny this?
You could just play the second one. I think that's fine too.
Good point. And Ultraman does go for it. Keeps the deny for a later Whirlwind, probably, to be able to save the Nexus HP later on. It is 1 mana more expensive than just denying, but I get the idea.
You have to also consider the temples in the deck are actually kind of a dead draw as well, once you already have one on board. So just playing that second one means that you're less likely to just keep redrawing into it.
Is a very good point. Concussive Palm gets picked up. That's a very good defensive option here. And Waldo did find the Cloudwinder. But all of these draws are delayed draws, right? They happen at the start of next turn. which does cost Hipster Waldo some momentum and some tempo and some pressure, and gives Ultraman's Sunkel Temple more time to get more and more draw cycles going. Pursuit of Perfection is still fairly far from completion, so we don't really mind this being shuffled back into our deck and popping up into our hand later on at a discounted cost.
Yeah, this is looking very, very difficult here for Waldo. It really needs to see what Waldo's able to draw in this turn, whereas I've seen Ultraman has had plenty of turns. And also one thing to note is the reduction in pursuit. If the game goes on long enough, can set up for a double.
Gems. I spot lethal. Long spinner, 4 cards, coin, encore, Pursuit of Perfection.
Ooh, does Ultraman see it?
I'm pretty sure Ultraman is going to go for this. Already started it with the Sputtering Song Spinner playing 3 spells. What? I don't know. What? Retreat pick? There's no unit here? Not quite sure about this one. But
it might have just been a dead option.
Right. It was a bit too fast. I didn't fully see it. But
Yeah.
Ultraman, Ultraman should be able to get everything rolling here. The coin cost 0, is going to regenerate 2 mana. And I think you started mentioning this earlier on, but in this matchup, the Janna Nila deck does not have a single option to deal with a 30-30 Overwhelm unit to stop it from one-shotting you.
Yeah, none. Once it's played, that's usually the game. It's pretty much a race. Janna Nila is pretty much racing to beat the Pursuit of Perfection most of the time, and unfortunately, Waldo's been unable to really achieve that. All this burn in hand, while it's great at the Nexus, really requires some chip damage to have happened in the earlier stages, and hasn't been able to really do that, only pushing 5 damage this entire game. I don't even think we've seen a Nila on the side of Waldo, right? And that's no slipstreams available either, and the additional draw there, it's been very, very rough.
Janna coming out kind of late here. Interestingly enough, with the knowledge we have, like Ultraman's Song Spinner pulls were a bit garbage because 2 of these spells required a unit to be on the board. But now that the Concussive Palm went through, even though Waldo is going to try to remove it and put stuff on the stack, the spells have already been played. They already count towards Pursuit of Perfection. And with the coin in hand and the tag out in hand, as well as the 0-cost removal spell, it's for sure going to be enough fuel to get Pursuit of Perfection to activation. What a chain of spells.
Yeah, this is such a silly stat. Waldo committing all their removal on a 3-2, only to unfortunately find out that this Pursuit of Perfection is going to be coming down.
And with the coin generating enough mana to be playing the giant cat, the Catastrophe, 30-30 is going to smack in Waldo's neck. This shiny mode comes out. There's nothing left to do for Hipster Waldo, and Ultraman takes this nail biter off his series with a crushing blow.
Yeah, fantastic play from Ultraman. Waldo tried their best. Unfortunately, today they had to hit Ultraman on a good day.
And on good draws as well. I'll be honest, it was a bit unfortunate for Hipster Waldo. The first game on Scouts, really not finding the necessary draws. The Grumble Slug draw would have been great, but just not finding any early units. And kind of the same happening in this game 3. Like, Waldo had an okay start, but in the mid games, turn 4, 5, 6, 7, really didn't find the board width. Didn't find enough units, but was only stuck with a bunch of removal spell options in hand. And Ultraman was able to take this in some very close matchups, but with some premier piloting skills.
Yeah, it's Scouts has been up for debate lately on whether that deck is a mid-range deck or a combo deck. You can see the combo nature of it, requiring to sort of do a couple of turns of setup, leading up to sort of managing your units, managing the health of those units, leading up to a big champion strength. And you could see the good players today who are playing up against it have been saying, no, basically, you cannot at any point go wide. We're going to preemptively start dealing with your units as soon as possible, even just throwing out removal left, right, and center, just minimizing the risk of that champion strength.
Ooh, I think the Scouts deck can be considered both a mid-range deck and a combo deck, depending on the matchup and depending on the draw.
Yeah.
When playing against decks that run Deny, you have to rely more on the mid-range game plan, and we did see that in Hipster Waldo's win, really just running over Ultraman in that one successful game. But in the other two games, just not finding the right pieces. The first game, Waldo would have also liked to snowball in a mid-rangey fashion, but just didn't find it. And yeah, I'm pretty impressed by Ultraman's piloting. Both players were very precise with mana management, but especially on the Set Seraphine deck, Ultraman was very effective with like not overcommitting, not tapping under mana, and always just keeping the board in a well enough of a state that you're comfortable to keep on passing.
Yeah, one thing to note is obviously Scouts has been around for a very, very long time. The lists haven't changed that much. However, obviously, it's lost access to quite a few number of key cards in Standard compared to Eternal, right? So there's one thing to note is obviously board wipes, especially not being in the meta right now, helps it quite a bit, because doesn't the lack of Rangers Resolve in Standard means that you don't have to worry about board, and the lack of board wipes in the meta means that you don't have to worry about having to run it because you can't. Yeah. Which is one of the reasons why it's been doing so well. It's a lot of direct damage removal.
Yeah, Chain Vest kind of tries to imitate a low budget Rangers Resolve sometimes, but it doesn't quite get there. So Scouts is a strong deck right now, but definitely beatable, and Ultraman showed that to us. And with that being said, we are done with this round of 32. There are no more games left, which also speaks to the pace of the current meta. A lot of faster decks currently dominate everything. There's not too many super drawn out matches anymore. And we are going to be bringing you the top 16 right after a little bit of a break.